Hello, sixth graders. I'm Miss Jose, and today we're going to read together chapter 13 from the book The Silver Sword. The chapter is called The Storm. So here you've got a picture of a storm. You see the black clouds in the sky, the wild sea, you see a boat. So think about what you think the chapter will be about, okay? But before we start chapter 13, let's see what was the last thing that happened. The four children are 300 kilometers from Lake Constance, very close to Switzerland. So here is the lake, Lake Constance. This is Switzerland, and this lake is the one that separates Germany from Switzerland. So the children are somewhere around here, okay? Jan realized he was missing the silver sword. He ran away at night while the rest was sleeping. He thought the silver sword would bring them good luck. Edek was very sick. He had trouble breathing and walking. Ruth, Bronya, and Edek tried to continue, but had to stop because Edek couldn't continue. So here you've got Edek, who is very sick. You see the virus there jumping from his mouth. And he is weak. He didn't have the energy nor the strength to continue walking. The children had to stop walking. Suddenly, a lorry stopped and Bronya asked the driver to help. The driver was an American soldier called Joe Wolski. The three children got in the lorry and they heard a noise in the back. The soldier told them that he had a wild animal at the back. And Bronya remembered that Jan liked animals. She told Joe about Jan and explained to him that Jan had run away. So here we have a picture of the small truck called lorry, the American soldier who was Joe Wolski and who was the person who helped them, and Jan running away from them to get the silver sword. The soldier told them he had met a boy like Jan, who got angry with him because the boy wanted the soldier to take him north. The soldier didn't want to, because it meant the boy would leave his family. The boy was very angry and started kicking at Joe, so Joe tied him up. So here you've got the boy tied up with ropes. Finally, Joe opened the back part of his lorry, and there they found Jan and Ludwig. So, let's now see some vocabulary we will need. First, here we've got a picture of lightning. Lightning is the light that comes out of clouds when there's a storm. Then we've got a cliff, which is like the border of a mountain or a small hill, and then you have water under or an empty space. Then we have the verb to borrow. For example, if I have a pencil and my friend wants it, he can borrow my pencil from me. Okay? Then we have to rise, which means to go up. We have the next word, which is ankle. That is this part of your foot. A stream, this is a very important word for the story. This is like a very short and small river. We have the verb to row, which is the movement you make when you want a boat to move. And finally, the word oar, which is the thing you need to make the boat move. So, can you think about what the chapter will be about? Let's start reading. There was a refugee camp near Lake Constance, and Joe took the children there. The camp official wanted to put Edek into the hospital and to send the others away, but Ruth would not allow this. But the camp official would not let the children go across the lake to Switzerland without proof that one of their parents was already there. Ruth did not know if her father was in Switzerland, and she could not remember the address of her mother's parents in Basel. Perhaps the sword can help us prove who we are, she thought, and she wrote to the farmer asking him to send it to her. Ruth was feeling sad when she said goodbye to Joe. They had come a long way, and now they could see Switzerland, but reaching it seemed harder than before. Thank you for being so kind, Joe, she said. Don't call me kind, said Joe. There are problems everywhere. I just want to help. I want to show people that you can't learn everything about life from a hole in a bombed cellar. Sometimes good things do happen to people. He shook Ruth's hand, and this is going to be one of those times. Let's think about before we continue. First question, where are the children right now? Second question, what did the camp official need to let the children cross the river? Third question, why did Ruth write to the farmer? Question number 4, why is Ruth sad? Question 5, why is the word see highlighted? And the last question, why did Ruth thank Joe? Now I'm going to show you a map of how much the children have traveled so far. So here we've got a picture of Poland, Germany, and Switzerland. Okay, so the children come from Warsaw. This is their place. And they travel to Germany to get to Switzerland. And their mother right now is in a city called Basel. So their final destiny should be here to meet their mother. Let's continue now with the story. The hot days went by slowly. There was thunder in the air, but the black clouds held back the rain. They seemed to be saving it for some special but terrible day. Ruth thought about borrowing a small boat and crossing the lake by themselves. But Edek's illness kept him in bed for most of the day. The camp official sent the information that Ruth gave him to the ITS, the International Tracing Service. But his letter to Basel about her mother's parents had not been answered, and Ruth had received no reply from the farmer about the sword. Before we continue reading, I'm going to explain to you what is the International Tracing Service. This was an institution where the refugees could go to find information about their families. So Ruth had sent a letter here to see if they could find their parents. Then, one day, in late August, the camp official asked Ruth to come and see him. "Can you describe that sword that you told me about?" he said. Ruth did this, and once again told the story of its adventures. A smile appeared on the official's face. "Ruth, you are the luckiest girl in Europe," he said. Let's think about what season is it? How do you know? How is Edek doing? Is he okay or is he worse? Why did the official smile? What will happen next? Let's continue now with the story. He took 2 letters and the sword from his desk. One letter was from the farmer. The other was from Ruth's father. Both were addressed to the ITS. The farmer's letter told some of the story of the family and gave details of the plans for getting to Switzerland. He had found the sword the day after the children had left. I immediately sent it to the ITS with the letter. Ruth's letter to him had got lost. It would be many months before she would get a reply to it. The letter from Ruth's father had a January date on it. In it, he described the children and when he had last seen him. He also wrote about his escape from the German prison, how he met Jan and gave him the sword, and about his long journey to Switzerland. "I received this information 2 days ago," said the camp official. "I wrote to your father, and his reply came today. He lives in Appenzell, on the other side of the lake. He will collect all of you at Meersburg tomorrow by the afternoon boat." Think about, what did the farmer letter say? What did Joseph's letter say? Where is Joseph living now? And what will happen to the children? Let's continue with the story. The next morning, Joseph Baliki tried to speak to Ruth on the phone, but the telephone line was bad and she could not hear him. Then there was silence. What was he trying to tell her? She wondered. The children waited by the lake for the Swiss boat to come and fetch them. They were so excited that they did not see the dark clouds getting thicker above them. Only Ludwig was unhappy, but nobody noticed this. "Let's go to that hill over there," said Jan. "We'll have a better view of the lake." "It means we have to cross this stream," said Ruth. "It's a very small stream," said Jan. It was true. There had been very little rain that summer, and it was easy to jump from rock to rock and get across the shallow water without getting their feet wet. "I'll stay on this side," said Eric, who was feeling tired. "Good idea," said Ruth. "Sit on that rock." But when she was on the other side of the stream, she called back to him, "Edek, there's a boat that's been pulled up on the ground behind you. You can get inside it if it rains." And at that moment, it did begin to rain. Eric laughed and got inside the boat. There was the sound of thunder from the Swiss mountains. Then lightning appeared through the clouds, and more thunder followed it. Suddenly, the clouds seemed to open up, and a great sheet of rain fell out of the sky. In just a few seconds, Ruth, Jan, and Bronya were wet through to their skins, and there was water up to their ankles. So let's think about, why isn't Ludwig happy? And what is happening to the children now? Let's continue now with the story. It was impossible to see through the heavy rain. Ruth reached for Bronya's hand and found it. She tried to find Jan's, but he was trying to count Ludwig. She got hold of his shirt, but he pulled away. "We must go back to Edek," shouted Ruth. It was not so easy to do. She fell over a broken tree branch, then tried to feel her way along the edge of the lake. It was some time before she realized she was going the wrong way. She went back again, but the quiet little stream was now a wider river, carrying bits of wood and whole trees in its wild, fast-moving water. Think about, what happened to the small stream they had to cross? And where is Edek? Let's continue with the story. "Edek, Edek," she cried, "we'll never get across." Then the rain became lighter and she could see across the river. Edek must be on the other side, she thought, but Edek was not there, nor was the boat. The water was all around them, rising up above their knees. Ruth pulled Bronya onto some ground which the water had not yet reached. "Where's Jan gone?" shouted Bronya. "I don't care where he's gone," Ruth shouted back. "I told him to stay with us, but he went after Ludwig. Edek, Edek!" Pushing her hair away from her eyes, she looked out across the lake. If Edek was still in the boat, perhaps the water had carried him out there, she thought. But she could not see the boat anywhere. "Jan's on the cliff behind us," said Bronya. Ruth turned. "Can you see him from there, Jan?" she shouted. "He jumped out of my arms and ran away," called Jan. "He was looking towards the land, not the lake. I mean, Edek, can you see his boat?" "I think I can see Edek's boat in the middle of the lake," shouted Bronya. But Jan didn't answer. He was thinking of Ludwig. Ruth looked again. She saw it for a moment, and then it disappeared. But Ruth was sure it had been Edek's boat and that he had been in it. Let's think about, who is Jan referring when he says he jumped out of my arms? And how do you think Ruth feels about his answer? Bronya was the first to see the empty rowing boat as it was carried past them by the river. She shouted to Ruth, who jumped towards it, catching the side. Jan came to help her. "Go away and look for your dog," Ruth told him. "You don't care about Edek. I hate you." But Jan held onto the boat, and together they pulled it to the side of the river. There was one oar and some rope inside the boat. "Go after your dog," Ruth shouted to Jan. "Look, there's Ludwig up by the road. Run after him and don't come back. Bronya and I can save Edek without you." The two girls jumped into the boat. Jan was staring at the dog. He wanted to run after the animal, but Ruth's words had hurt him. He looked back at her brave face, and he knew what he had to do. He had lost Ludwig, but he could not lose Ruth. Think about what happened with Ludwig. What do you think is Jan going to do? His wooden box was under his arm. He threw it into the boat and jumped in after it. Then he put the oar into the water and began to row. In that moment, Jan began to grow up. So that's the end of chapter 13, people. For the class you're going to work with this video, make sure you answer the following questions in your copybook so we can check it with you in class. Okay? It was nice reading the chapter with you. Have a nice week. Goodbye.